I haven't gotten to rate tanks in a while. I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to jump into this. It's gonna be explosive, just like half of America's stomachs right now. Let's go. I want to remind everybody, when I rate tanks, I rate them from an aquascaper's lens, not necessarily a fish keeper's or anything. It's from my own lens of like, I'm essentially judging this person's tank based on competition level. Never done it before, but that's how I'm judging. Starting with Ranoff's tank, and I really love the overall composition of it. It's very, very clean. You can tell that the plants are super healthy, actually almost too healthy because they're overgrown, but the background is black, which really brings a nice contrast between the plants and the background of the tank, helping build a little bit of depth. It's a really nice looking tank, but there's some key improvements that we can make. Now, the first thing is that the plants are overgrown, right? And that means that you have a lot of shrubbery that is actually blocking the big piece of wood. Fellas, you know what I mean by this. You need to cut the shrub to make the wood stand out, right? Make it look bigger than it is. But anyway, you also don't have a ton of depth that's being built in this tank. You have the black background, but then you have a wall of green plants. Now, I love the plants, they're super healthy, but you don't have depth, so it actually kind of acts as like a structure and blocks depth in your tank. I think with such a wall of plants, it actually ends up blocking a lot of the hardscape in your tank, and it gets rid of a lot of dimension that could possibly be there. It's just hidden. So I'd really like to see additional hardscape added, maybe to the, empty space that I can't quite see hardscape in. So yeah, this is what I think your tank would look better like, with some slight improvements, but you can see that there's a little bit more depth here, right? There's more hardscape visible. There's a little bit of additional hardscape, and it just kind of has a better flow to it. But overall, man, absolutely love the aquascape. This is an 8.0 out of 10. Very nice tank. We're jumping over to King Conan, and this is a person from Discord. Thank you so much for joining the community. You've been super active. Thank you so much. It's super cool. I love the beginning design of this tank. I think it's super unique, and you have a lot of good building blocks to go off of, but there's some obvious improvements that I just want to go over with you. This tank is very vertical, so right now what we really are struggling with is the lack of depth. And the planting situation on the top platform is not going to get any better if you don't build depth. So we need to add some aqua soil in order to build up that layer to where when you have the plants and they actually grow in, it actually covers a lot of the tank, because right now it is not going to do that. Or if the tank actually ends up having really tall plants, they're going to be very stringy and it's not going to look great. So we want to propagate as much as humanly possible after adding aqua soil to bring some depth to the tank. Now, I see that you started to do this, and I hope that you do more of it in the future. But that rock crest that you have in the front, it looks like you started to put some epiphytes in there, but there's a lot of parts in that crest that can use a lot more planting with epiphytes of any type, boost, Anubias, whatever. It would really, really help, because right now you can kind of see the plaster or whatever it is, and it just kind of doesn't look the greatest. I did want to call this out. I'm not entirely sure if it's true, but the Anubias that you have planted on the bottom kind of looks like you have the rhizome dug into the soil, and I want to make sure to call that out just in case, because that Anubias will die if you have the rhizome inside of the aqua soil. I do really like the little cave system you got going on. It really is really good for some of our fish friends. They like that kind of dark hiding space. It's an overall really unique and cool style, and I think if you execute it correctly, it's gonna look amazing. Right now, it's a 5.6 out of 10 for me. We have some improvements to do, and this is what I think the tank could look like in the future. If you make these minor adjustments, I think we could really get there. We're heading over to Saul from TikTok, and I absolutely love the minimalist look you got going on here. There's a really nice Zen vibe to it. You have some flow in this tank, so you can tell you know what you're doing when it comes to composition, and I definitely appreciate that. However, there's some minor improvements that we can make to this to actually really take it to that next level. Let's start with the wood. I love the composition of wood that you got. It's really cool. I want to make sure that on the left side of the tank where the wood starts, that wood is sunk into the substrate rather than it levitating. It kind of makes it look unnatural or just different when that's sticking up. So dip that into the substrate and I think it'll look a lot better. In that same area of focus, I really want there to be more plants there. I want that to be a big, vibrant, like focal point of the tank because that's kind of the point of this composition that you have. In addition, you see that piece of like plant or whatever you have that's planted just super randomly. It looks like maybe bamboo outside of the tank. Move that over to the other side of the tank to where it draws people's attention towards that brightly lit area of your tank. In this tank, there's a little bit of depth built. You can see that you started to build like a little bit of a ramp towards that left side. However, it never fully got there. So you need to add more of a ramp, make it bigger, and it'll elevate your scape just a little bit more outside of your tank, but I think it will bring a nice layer of dimension and depth to your tank. I also think that the addition of more hardscape in terms of the river rocks that you have would benefit this kind of layout. I know that it's minimalist, but I think that if you add a few more towards the left side of the tank, it'll really look good. And also, this is just a personal preference, but I don't like that little hut thing you got. It ruins the aquascape for me in general, just because it's so out of the blue. But I totally get it. It's your tank. I'm not going to be mean about it. Overall, with these improvements, I think that you could get something like this. Pretty cool, right? A few minor adjustments and we get this from a 6.5, which is what I'm rating it, all the way up to like a 7.58. It takes just very minimal changes to explode and elevate the level of this tank. We're heading over to Devin Zawada, and look, there's a lot of good things about this tank. The composition of the rock, I actually really like. It kind of has combating angles, and it's really well thought out and planned. There's a focal point of the big rock on the left side. There's a lot to like about this tank. I love the start of the carpet. The big wall of, looks like Rotala in the background looks good. But let's jump into improvements. Now, this is a personal thing, but it looks like you're using an all-in-one tank that is meant to be a peninsula, meaning that black background should be your tank's background rather than it being the side profile. That bothers me for whatever reason. I wish that your background was black or it had some sort of background because it would really help build depth to this tank in a major way. Another thing is the Rotala that you have growing in the background is very stringy. I want you to cut those things in half and replant them and help build some actual density to those plants because that back wall is looking mighty weak right now. The amount of depth that you build in this tank is really solid, especially for what looks like a pretty small tank. The only thing that I would change is the right rock on the furthest point. I wish it was placed a little bit higher because I feel like it would build depth just a tad bit more, but that's just me being a little bit picky. If you did all these things, it might look something like this. That would be my ideal look of this tank. Bigger, thicker, lusher Rotala, slightly elevated rock placement, a little bit more depth, and a solid background to build even more depth. I think you got something that's really special in the books. I think it's really nice. I'm gonna go with a 7.3 out of 10. We're heading to Reisuwu, and look, this tank has some character. I really like the overall composition. The rocks look pretty cool. I really like that spider wood that you got in there. There's mid-ground, foreground, background plants. There's a lot to love about this tank. There's some minor adjustments we can make to make this thing really pop. This tank is battling with two different focal points right now. And the reason that's happening is because you have stems on one side and your driftwood on the other side, and the level of them are exactly the same. And that will cause you to not have an exact big focal point. What you need to do in order to combat this is build depth towards your driftwood and your hardscape side to make it higher and appear larger than your stem plants. That'll give some semblance and some depth to your tank to where the stems are still there and they're still prevalent, but this is the big, the big mamma jamma, right? That we want you to look at. So I think that would really help. In addition to that, you have these floaters that have roots that are as long as a centipede. And I think that if you just trim those just a little bit, it'll really help, stop people from being distracted. Overall, I think that if you made these minor adjustments, you could get something like this. And while it's not a crazy change, you can see that it really does elevate the level. So just, make a few minor adjustments, elevate it, and I think we got something really special. Right now, as it stands, your tank is a 7.9 out of 10. I really like it. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you're subscribed. At 10,000 subscribers, I'm flying out to somebody's house, I'm purchasing all the plants and hardscape and helping somebody design a tank. Do it already. I forgot to film an outro for this. I hope that you really liked this video. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Go check out my other videos, and also a little sneak peek, working on a new tank. I'll see you guys later.